My name is Falo. I'm an architect, but not just that. I like that's what my profession is, like that's what I work in, architecture, but I think it's more broad than that. So whether like I'm designing a space or an object or a book even, that's mainly what I do. I work at an architecture firm right now in LA that's kind of on the verge between architecture and arts in general, and that's something that I'm very interested in. And it goes back, or it goes to like this collaboration process that I think is necessary in all disciplines and all fields. And the one that I know the most obviously is design, and I believe that for a good design to come out or to be created, there needs to be more than just one brain into that. So that's what I mean mainly about collaboration. And so I started this project a few years ago that's called What Architecture Isn't. And it's kind of a critique of the way that things have been done before and like in the past, but also still in the present, where the people that came before us kind of dictate the way that we should be doing things moving forward. I don't think that that's a good way. I think that it might work, but I think it's more of a tunnel vision than anything else. So the whole concept around what architecture isn't is that I meet with architects that are not just architects, right? Like they're architects, but they're also, for example, fashion designers or movie producers or any other creative field. Sometimes, surprisingly, it's not even a creative field, it's something very far away. But I think that was the proof to me and like the perfect example that nothing can come out of just one space. You need to be kind of, stretch yourself or stretch your mind to other disciplines or other industries. Just like be curious, ask questions outside of the realm that you exist in. And so all of these little conversations that I have with these people are mainly, about architecture, I guess. But it's what I'm trying to do here is like see which part of their architect's mind do they use for their other mind, let's say fashion designer, and then vice versa. Because I think that that's the very thing we should be looking at and the very thing we can learn from. I think that, it's like two minds are always better than one, and two minds don't equal two different visions. They equal three, right? Because there's like right now, there's my mind, yours, and then the one where we're both together in it. And I just think that that's the most human thing that you can do, right? I think I like to talk about design this way. I think that designing is the most human thing we can do, and that's what defines our species. So, for example, take any species that exists on Earth right now with us, let's say like a bird, right? A bird comes to like a tree and like there is a problem. He sees a little worm and wants to get the worm, right? He'll find a little branch, he'll take the worm out, and then for the next thousands of years, he'll use the exact same branch to get, to the worm. When us humans, we might use a branch the first time, but then we'll wonder, oh, wait, should I use my finger? Can I use, I don't know, a toothbrush, whatever, like any other thing? And I think that that's what makes us human. It's like going forward, like going farther than what's just in front of us. I think that that is a very valuable thing, no matter if you're in the design world or in other world. Like even if you're in tech, you're in medicine, you're in, I don't know, engineering. All of these industries, they all have one thing in common, right? It's like there's humans and we're trying to get better. We're trying to make the world that we exist in better. And I think that it's very easy sometimes for people to, like focus on themselves so much that it's like looking inwards will give you solutions. And I agree with that 100%. You should always look inwards, you should always, find your own vision of things, find your own language of things, find what you're interested in and go forward. But then we don't exist on our own. We exist with other people. And like that's that is like why we're rich, actually, like we have each other. And I don't think we can move as fast as we do now if we were on our own, each person or each discipline, or whatever it is. So yeah, I get very excited for initiatives like yours because it pulls together so many different people, so many different thoughts, ideas, etc., and gives us a new perspective on how things are. Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, but I think that you can become more than you already like were destined to be. I think that it's kind of like a fantasy that we like to think about that way, mainly in like creative fields. It's like, oh, like this person has a talent in painting or a talent in, something else. I don't think talent is a real thing. I think that like there's one Mozart out of maybe like 100,000 people. I think that's very rare, but I think the only thing that makes you actually good at what you're doing is just practicing it and, giving your all in it. Because technically, like, since I was young, I always knew I wanted to be an architect. But then when I started studying architecture, I realized I had no idea what architecture was. And I still don't think I know what it is. It's like one of those things that like the world is like set in a specific way, right, growing up, where you see all of these people doing all these different kinds of things, and it's as if you just have to pick one and then you just become it. I don't think that's the reality of it. I think that you're prone or like more or less attracted to things, and then you just like take a leap of faith and like go into it, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and I think that's okay too. That's one thing that, where when we're kids we're told, oh, you need to make a decision, you need to become that, like, it's like very fast paced. And in the end, like, I took my time a lot in a lot of things, and I think that I benefited from that, of like trying out different things. It was always architecture, honestly, but it's completely different than what I was told it was, or what I used to think it was on my own. And yeah, I just think that you can literally become anything that you want. Personally, I think that it all comes down to, because yes, like you need patience, you need practice, etc. But it all comes down to how bad you want it, like how interested you actually are in it. And I think that in my life at least, it's like I need all of these categories to kind of talk to each other. So like that's another layer of collaboration inside of my own mind, I think, where like I need like my professional career to be aligned with also like my personal values and like the things that I'm interested in like regular life. Because I think that if you separate all of these things, which is kind of like the word works, right? Like there's the engineers and the architects, the tech people, the doctors, all of these things, and they're all separated, it just doesn't work for me, honestly. I think that as soon as there is like some kind of harmony in between all of them, then I can give everything, then I can be actually patient, then I can actually give all I have and practice, 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 to then hope achieve mastery. And it's also like I kind of like to think about mastery or mastering something as not an actuality but more of an aspiration. So it's like I have a goal, right? And then 5 years from now, I do get to that goal, but then my goal is moving 5 years also. You know what I'm saying? It's like I can never actually catch it, or else, you know, you're losing everything. I think it's like, let me think about it in a second. For a second, it's like when you're telling little like fairy stories to children, and like all of these non-realistic things. I think that that's somehow important to do, because not because you want them to believe in that, but you want them to believe that there's something else, right? But then as soon as they know that it was just a story and fake, etc., then it loses all purpose, right? So I kind of feel very strongly about a lot of areas in life that I'm like, there are goals, let's say, that I'm walking towards, that it's important to be a little bit delusional about them. Like I like that. I like fantasizing about things, etc. Like I'm conscious that I'm doing that, but I think it's necessary for the human mind to go further than it can. Like the sky is not the limit, but then the sky covers our life. So like, why would you think that there's something outside of the sky? I think there's a lot of instances of buildings and architects that have achieved those, like that have achieved like the perfection or whatever. And but I would say personally that the one that will never cease, you know, impressing me or is not a building, but it's urban planning. So it's like a collection of buildings put together, and um, that would be probably a European city, like an old European city. Let's just take the one that I know the most is Paris. And right now, actually, I'm working on a proposal for a project in Paris of like there's a new plan to like expand Paris and make it like a London or a New York, right? And looking closely at how it was not an architect per se, but how the person did that, it's like a vision that was like goes so far. And until today, I think that anyone can agree with me. When you're walking the streets of Paris, it's like you're walking with every single person that has walked the street before you, right? I don't think that that's very easy to achieve, and I think that being in, like, for example, in the US, where like the urban planning of cities is completely different. It's made to just be practical, right? Like if you're in New York, there's no way almost that you can get lost in Manhattan because it's a grid, right? Like you understand it, even if you have nothing to do with architecture or urban planning, right? And like the opposite side is like if you're in Paris, 100% you will get lost every time. I still do, and I love that, right? I think that that's the very thing that's so hard to capture within a space, but that somehow they were able to do. And again, this like ties back to collaboration because it doesn't only come from the urban planning and it doesn't only come from the architecture. It comes from all of the ecosystems that make our world, whether it is architecture and then urban planning and then history, culture, politics, technology. All of these things come together to then give you the perfect, as close to perfect as possible, place to be and experience a city.